Mark crumpled the thick parchment between his fingers, the gold-embossed edges catching the dim light of their apartment. $50,000, he muttered, glancing at Lisa. Just for staying one night in some old house. You think it's real? Lisa leaned over his shoulder, her breath warm against his cheek as she reread the invitation's elegant script. No return address, no signature, just a set of coordinates and a time. It's creepy, she admitted, but we could use the money. She smirked. Besides, what's the worst that could happen? Their GPS led them down winding back roads, the trees thickening until the asphalt gave way to gravel, then dirt. The mansion loomed ahead, its turrets clawing at the twilight sky. Weathered shutters hung crookedly, and ivy choked the walls like skeletal fingers. As they stepped out of the car, the air grew heavy, smelling of damp earth and something metallic. Blood or rust, Lisa couldn't tell. The front door groaned open before Mark could knock. Inside, dust motes swirled in the fading light, settling on moth-eaten furniture. A grandfather clock ticked unevenly in the corner, its hands frozen at 3:17. Lisa shivered. This place feels wrong. Mark laughed, but it was hollow. It's just old. He nudged a fallen portrait with his foot. A family, their faces blurred as if the paint had melted. One night, easy money. As the last streaks of sunlight vanished, the door slammed shut behind them. The lock clicked. Outside, the wind howled like a wounded animal. Somewhere deep in the house, floorboards creaked under unseen weight. Lisa grabbed Mark's arm. Did you hear that? He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the staircase, where a shadow flickered. Just for a second, before dissolving into the dark. The air inside the mansion was thick with the scent of dust and decay, the floorboards creaking underfoot as Mark and Lisa ventured deeper into the unfamiliar halls. The flickering of the overhead lights cast erratic shadows across the peeling wallpaper, and the occasional whisper, just barely audible, seemed to slither through the air like a serpent. Mark chuckled nervously, nudging Lisa. Probably just the wiring. This place is ancient, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. Lisa nodded, but her grip on his arm tightened as they turned down a dimly lit corridor. The whispers grew louder, indistinct yet urgent, as if someone were pleading just out of earshot. Her eyes darted to a grand, cobwebbed window at the end of the hall, and there, framed against the moonlight, was a shadowy figure. Its hollow gaze was fixed on them, motionless. Mark, she whispered, her voice trembling. There's someone there. He followed her pointed finger, squinting. Where? The figure was gone. A cold draft swept through the hallway, raising goosebumps on Lisa's skin. She swallowed hard, her pulse racing. I swear I saw someone watching us. Right in that window. Mark sighed, rubbing his temples. It's just the dark playing tricks on you. This place is creepy, but it's empty. Lisa wanted to believe him, but the lingering sense of being watched refused to fade. The whispers returned, this time closer, forming words she couldn't quite decipher. Then, a soft, rasping breath, right beside her ear. She spun around, but the hallway was empty. Mark frowned at her reaction. You okay? Before she could answer, a distant thud echoed from somewhere above them, followed by the slow, deliberate drag of something heavy across the floor. The lights flickered violently, plunging them into near darkness for a heartbeat. When the light returned, Lisa's breath caught in her throat. The window at the end of the hall was no longer empty. The figure stood there again, closer now, its features still obscured. But this time, it raised a single, skeletal finger to its lips in a silent warning. Then it was gone. Mark hadn't seen it, but Lisa knew, they weren't alone. Mark's heartbeat pounded in his ears as he and Lisa cautiously ventured deeper into the mansion. The grand staircase creaked under their weight, its wooden bones groaning like a living thing. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of mildew and something faintly metallic. Lisa's flashlight flickered, casting erratic shadows that seemed to twitch unnaturally. Just as they reached the landing, Mark felt it. A frigid, skeletal hand clamping down on his shoulder, fingers digging into his flesh with unnatural strength. He whipped around, nearly losing his balance, but there was nothing. Just the empty hall stretching into darkness. Did you feel that? He gasped, rubbing his shoulder where the cold still lingered. Lisa stared at him, her breath forming misty tendrils in the suddenly freezing air. The temperature had plummeted, turning the once stuffy corridor into a freezer. Their exhales hung in front of them like specters. Lisa's voice trembled. We need to leave. Now. She grabbed his arm, pulling him back toward the stairs. But as they rushed to the front door, the handle refused to turn. Locked, they exchanged frantic glances, rattling the door with increasing desperation. The wood didn't budge. From the darkness above, a faint giggle echoed. Childlike, but tinged with something guttural. The chandelier swayed, though there was no wind. The cold bit deeper, gnawing at their bones. Lisa's teeth chattered as she whispered, "It doesn't want us to leave." The house seemed to breathe around them, its walls contracting like a predator savoring its prey. The air in the mansion grew thick with an unnatural stillness as Mark and Lisa stood in the dimly lit hallway. At first, the voices were nothing more than a murmur, barely audible over the creaking of the old floorboards. Lisa tilted her head, straining to make out the words. "Do you hear that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Mark nodded, his brow furrowing as the whispers grew clearer. A chorus of sorrowful tones weaving together in a haunting melody. The words became distinct, recounting fragments of a tragedy, a family, trapped within these very walls, their lives snuffed out one by one under mysterious circumstances. A mother's desperate prayer, a child's whimper, a man's choked final breath, all echoed around them as if the house itself were alive with memory. Lisa clutched Mark's arm, her nails digging into his skin. "They're crying for help," she breathed, her eyes darting across the peeling wallpaper. Then the walls began to weep. Dark, oily liquid seeped from the cracks, dripping onto the floor in thick rivulets. The metallic tang of blood filled the air, mingling with the scent of damp rot. The whispers crescendoed into wails, pleading, begging for release. Lisa stumbled back as a trickle of the foul substance ran down her sleeve, leaving a burning coldness in its wake. Mark grabbed her hand, pulling her away from the spreading stain. "We need to get out of here," he said, his voice tight with fear.